we can heal these wounds and heal them more durably, we have significant impact on their quality and in many cases the length of life, but probably most importantly to the system today, particularly in the current environment, is significant cost savings for the payers.
All right, welcome back inside our proactive newsroom. And joining me now is Dr. Mike Griffiths. He is the CEO and founder of AOTI. And Dr. Griffiths, it's good to see you. How are you?
Doing well. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, good to have you along. Excited to learn a bit more about the company. Tell me a bit about AOTI.
So AOTI is a unique medtech company focused predominantly on the US market. And what we have, we're in the wound care space, but with something that sets us apart from other wound care companies. We have a home-based therapy that utilizes oxygen in a multi-modality way that not only helps heal wounds, but has been demonstrated to more durably heal them so they don't reoccur as much, which reduces then obviously additional ongoing maintenance and costs, but also hospitalizations and amputations that these patients suffer from.
And your market is one of the key markets is in diabetes patients. Is that right?
Correct. One of the key areas we focus on is patients with diabetes who sadly, diabetics over their lifetime have a 33% chance of developing diabetic foot ulcers due to the disease. And a significant number of those, as much as 50% of those, end up becoming infected and results in many cases on the patients being hospitalized. And sadly, as much as 20% then lose their limbs due to that infection and an amputation that has to follow.
Yeah, you recently got some good news because obviously you're trying to penetrate the U.S. market, which is the key one for you, and California being one of the biggest markets in the United States. You just got some recently good news about your therapy being able to be accessed in there. Is that right?
Absolutely. So our strategy at the moment, prior to receiving more traditional, what they call Medicare coverage, which is more for the over 65 elderly population, we've been focusing on state access in what they call Medicaid, which is the biggest provider of healthcare in the US, which is the underinsured, low income area of healthcare. And California, as you can imagine, is not only a behemoth of an economy, but is also the biggest state relative to Medicaid, with over 15 million enrollees in what they call Medi-Cal, which is their version of Medicaid. And we were delighted to receive our provider ID that allows us to now start working with both insurers and with the state, legislatures, et cetera, and state bodies to gain access for our therapy across the state.
And that really fits into the strategy for the company about revenue growth as well. I know you just had some financials out and it showed you did have some revenue growth, but this really will fit nicely into what your plan is in the future, correct?
Absolutely. So our sort of short-term plan has been to continue to grow our historical segment, which is the Veterans Administration, the VA, whilst we open up progressively more and more states focused on the Medicaid sector, which I said is the lower income, is where most of people were covered under the Affordable Care Act, when they expanded coverage for people back under Obamacare. That is done on a state-by-state basis. So, we've outlined that we expect to open 2 to 3 states a year. We've now actually opened 3 states already this year, one of them being California. So it's well in line, and I'd say many actually ahead of where we expected to be at this time.
Yeah. Talk to me a little bit about is the US going to be the main focus now going forward? Are you looking at Canada, other areas as well? I would imagine that you'd be willing to sell just about anywhere, but I'm wondering what the focus of the company is.
No, absolutely. I mean, our business and our focus has been historically California.
Yeah.
We're based in the US. We're based in California, so obviously having California, our home state, begin to open up is obviously very important to us. However, we are focused internationally, but it's a matter of dividing our time and resources most efficiently. What we've done is taken a targeted approach internationally, and we focus on the United Kingdom, Germany, and the Gulf region and the Middle East as large areas with developed healthcare systems. And we had some very good news recently also from Germany, where GBA, which is the German regulatory body for coverage of medical items, gave us a positive recommendation, which means we're moving aggressively forward there in that market, which is 85 million people and the largest healthcare market in the European Union.
And lastly, when I was reading about the company and researching it, there was a lot in there that talked about the quality of life of the patients that you're dealing with and people that are burdened with diabetes and other things, and just that the ability to use your products and be able to have a better quality of life, I think must be very key in what you do.
That's absolutely critical. These patients that suffer from diabetes or venous disease, or in many cases, they call them comorbid, they have have lots of disease going on at once, have a horrible quality of life. Prior to them, progressing to hospitalizations and amputations, it's enormous burden of suffering. And if we can heal these wounds and heal them more durably, we have significant impact on their quality and in many cases the length of life. But probably most importantly to the system today, particularly in the current environment, is significant cost savings for the payers, whether it be governments or insurance companies, because you can imagine, the cost of managing these wounds is enormous. They estimate in the US alone the cost of diabetic foot care to be about $79 billion a year.
Wow.
And it's really quite incredible.
Unbelievable. Dr. Griffiths, important work that you're doing. Congratulations on the successes that you've seen. And we look forward to following your story as it continues to develop. So thanks very much. Good to see you.
Appreciate talking to you. Thank you.
All right, Dr. Mike Griffiths. He is the CEO of AOTI Inc.